against gay people in attempts to make them heterosexual. Sheldon served as vice president of the Bay Area Skeptics for 8 years and has written for the James Rand Educational Foundation, as well as contributing to several books on critical thinking, such as Magic in the Classroom, a collection of tips for those teaching critical thinking in higher education. Sheldon's podcast, Shell Shocked, can be found on iTunes and Stitcher. And he's here today to present Be More Like Your Brain, a primer on how the human brain can serve as a metaphor for living a full and productive life. So welcome, Sheldon.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning.
I'm not used to getting feedback like that. My students just moan and drink. God, him again. Thank you again for inviting me, Vivian, and thank you all for showing up on this smoky day. I was on my way here on the 880 freeway, and I was getting a little annoyed by this huge truck that was in front of me with this old cowboy driving with his cowboy hat on. I'm used to seeing that in Bakersfield where I'm from, but up here I don't see it very often. And instead of feeling like, oh, I'm at home, I felt like a little annoyed. And then I looked at the back of his truck, and it was just weighted down with dog food and, I'm going to get teary-eyed, and alfalfa. And on the back of it said, Feed for Paradise. And I felt like such an asshole for being annoyed by this guy, you know? And at first I thought, paradise? Paradise, of course. And I thought how much emptier that truck would look if it were filled with thoughts and prayers. All right. Let me trade my vanity for vision. Oh, I brought a prop.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Popular questions are, is it real? Of course. I would bring you, I will in a moment. I would bring you a fake brain. And then, is it human? And of course, I wouldn't bring you a monkey brain. And whose is it? The answer is mine. Actually, it belongs to the college I work for, Ohlone College. It's quite pickled. Yours is much lovelier than this. Yours is fleshy, not rubbery. Yours is pink and lovely. And this one's pickled and gray. So I just thought I'd bring it just to innervate you. I think there's nothing quite like a human brain to innervate people to talk about it. So yes, you can take selfies with that later. If it creeps you out, you don't have to come take a look at it. I created this talk some years ago because I was lucky enough to be invited to give the keynote address at the graduation ceremony of the Montessori school that's right next to Ohlone College. It's a very small, lovely little campus with very small student body, and many of the graduating class, I think something like 80% of the graduating class had taken one of my psychology classes. And so a horrible mistake was made, and I accepted to give that talk. And so I was like, oh, what am I going to talk to a bunch of 18-year-olds about who are graduating from high school? Like, my life is shit. Like, you know, when I was 18, I didn't know what I was doing. I was caught up in like the New Age movement and listening to Shirley MacLaine talks at the Bodhi Tree bookstore in Los Angeles. Can you imagine? And then one day I was down there waiting for her to arrive and give a talk, and she never showed up. Thanks a lot, Shirley. And they said, well, while you're waiting for her, why don't you just browse around? Maybe you'll buy something. And so I said, okay. So I was looking, and I ran across this book about Nostradamus. And I thought, oh wow, I don't know much about him. I know about Edgar Cayce and some of these like modern New Age soothsayers, but I didn't know anything about Nostradamus, so I thought I'll buy that. So I bought it, and then Shirley said she wasn't coming. And so I got on the bus and was riding back home to Bakersfield, and I was thumbing through it, and I was getting angrier and angrier at this author. And I was like, who does this guy think he is? He's making a fool out of Nostradamus. Like, this guy had magical powers, right? And he was real and blah, blah. And then by the end of it, I was like, damn, I don't think I believe this stuff anymore. And the author's name was James Randi. Now,
Wow.
how that book got on the shelf at the Bodhi Tree bookstore in Los Angeles, I will never know. For those of you who aren't aware, James Randi is the nexus. He's the beginning of the skeptical movement. In fact, he's the one who coined the term skeptic to call ourselves that. And I think many people nodding their heads in here know what I'm saying when I say skeptics. Skeptics are people who ask for evidence before they accept something, and even then it's only tentative. So I always begin my talks by thanking James Randi for saving me from all of that nonsense, and then putting me on the path toward understanding science and things like the human brain. So I thought, well, maybe that's what I'll talk to these young people about, is the human brain, but that seemed kind of boring because they're not there for a lecture, so I decided to meld the two. So this was the result. It's just a small little feel-good piece that mixes a little science with a little innovation, I hope. So here's a taste of it. So I thought I'd give you a little advice about how you should be a lot more like the human brain. 4 pieces. 1, be more interesting than people give you credit for. If you're not already aware, the human brain is a mass of about 3 pounds, and it's a rather unassuming glob, the consistency of hard jello or soft tofu. If you hadn't been told about how important it is, you could be excused for thinking it wasn't important at all. In fact, in early Egyptian mummification, they scooped it out and tossed it away. Think about that for a moment. Here's a group of people who love and care about you so much they want to prepare you for the next life and make sure you have everything you need, and they scoop out and toss away the one thing you need the most, your brain. Despite its modest appearance, however, the human brain is indeed the most complex thing we know of in the universe so far. It's made up of about 100 billion cells called neurons that are so intricately connected, we will most likely never fully understand it. After all, what are we using to try to understand the brain? The brain. Exactly. You know, that's true of each of you too. Every one of you has far more potential than people are probably giving you credit for. Even the people who love and support you may have no idea what you're capable of. And even you may not know. That's what I want you to do for the rest of your lives. Go out and discover the ways that you're complex, unique, and skilled at doing things that might amaze the people around you. 2, work well with others, but be independent. The human brain is a terrific role model for teamwork. We generally think of it as one thing, but in many ways, it's several. In the most basic way, it exists in 2 sections called hemispheres, and they're nearly identical biologically, but functionally, they're distinct. The left hemisphere works to bring us language, mathematical reasoning, and linear thinking. The right hemisphere works, on the other hand, to give us art and creativity, facial recognition, and music. In addition to performing their distinct tasks, these hemispheres share the workload, taking in the input from our sense organs and giving us a representation of the world around us to the best of their ability. In other words, they simultaneously work together and independently. Interestingly, even though they work well in concert, scientists have discovered we don't need both of them. In rare circumstances where people's epileptic seizures don't respond to other treatments, they sometimes perform a surgery called a hemispherectomy. It involves complete removal of one hemisphere of the brain, thus stopping the electrical storms that create seizure. You'd think this would have devastating consequences for the patient, but contrary to reason, it doesn't. After an adjustment period, the remaining hemisphere simply takes over the functions of the missing one and carries on without it. Those are abilities we possess too. You know, one of the most important skills that we can develop is called emotional intelligence. This involves being able to read emotions in others as well as ourselves and altering our behavior to fit various circumstances. The reason it's so important to success is that, like the brain, we work best as a team. Your biggest successes in life will probably come from team efforts, one in which you operate a lot like your left or right hemisphere, combining the skills and talents you possess with those of other people, sometimes completely different from you. And it's equally important for you to realize that there will be times in your life, maybe long stretches, where you'll have to go it alone. Not only is this character building, but it's something you're already prepared for. It's nice to have another hemisphere to spend your life with, sharing tasks and benefiting from each other's presence, but we should also know that we can be just fine on our own. Like that lone hemisphere, you're better equipped than you know to take on the tasks necessary to carry on and lead a normal life, even if you're sometimes by yourself. 3, use resources efficiently and maximize your output. A lot of people like to point out that the human brain makes up only about 2% of your body's mass, but takes up 20% of the oxygen and 1/4 of your caloric intake every day. Put one way, your brain is a huge resource ball. But if you look at it another way, it takes what it needs. Our nervous systems are incredibly efficient and waste practically nothing. They receive trillions of signals from the many billions of nerve fibers throughout our bodies every second of the day, allowing us to make sense out of a cacophony of sensory data, cognitive processes, reasons, logic, not to mention enjoying a sense of self-awareness that no other organism ever has. So all in all, it's a really good use of oxygen and energy. Each of us should be emulating the brain in that way. Although our species can be very selfish and thoughtless, especially in times of crisis or forgetfulness, we also have an amazing capacity to be mindful of our responsibility to leave a suitable planet for those who come after us. So go ahead and use the resources around you. Enjoy the air and the water. Well, maybe not the air today, but enjoy it while we have it. For now, use the fossil fuels that provide us with energy to keep us cool in the summer and warm in the winter. But use them wisely and sparingly, with an eye on how you can avoid adding to the huge carbon footprint that we all leave for our generations behind us. Don't feel guilty for using resources, but be aware of your responsibility to use them sensibly and responsibly. Your brain does this, but it has no choice. Yours must be done by free will. And lastly, be a risk taker. In case you think the brain isn't a risk taker, it's made mostly of water and it uses electricity. Those are two things that don't generally get along very well, and I would say it's pretty daring. Let me give you an example. The reality that we live in isn't quite reality. It's a representation of reality. All 5 of your senses are an approximation of a reality. For instance, colors don't technically exist. Did you know this? What actually happens in order for you to perceive colors is that light enters through the sun or artificial sources like this and bounces off of objects. And those light waves travel toward us and into our eyes. Now, if the objects they bounced off of absorb certain of those light waves, then what you end up perceiving is its opposite. For instance, if the short light waves are absorbed by that chair, the long ones enter our eyes and create reds and oranges. That chair is actually everything but blue. The one thing it is not is blue. The blue light waves are bouncing off and into my eyes, and I have the nerve to say that's a blue chair. That's pretty daring. So, my hope for each of you is that you do some wacky stuff like the brain does. Have audacity from time to time to experience the world differently than it seems. Imagine that the world is better than it actually is, and then go out and make that happen. Thanks.